Okay. Hey, Micah. How's it
Hi
going?
there. I'm good. How are you doing today?
Doing well on this warm December California day.
I know it's California winter.
California winter, loving every minute.
I guess we should say Southern California, but I
True.
digress. What are we going to talk about today?
So, we are going to chat about, and more specifically, this conversation is for any of you out there who maybe are feeling a little bummed to be ending the year still feeling unhappy or stuck in your career. We have three things you could be doing over the next few weeks that could bring you a bit more career clarity as you start the new year.
Yeah, I think that kind of bummed feeling about your career or your job it's a big heavy feeling, and sometimes we don't have clarity about what's driving that feeling of discontent, excuse me, or frustration. So these tips that we're going to share in just a moment can really help people like kind of muddle through it and see what the real thing is that's making them kind of bummed at the end of this year, and maybe inspire what they could be thinking about to change.
Yep, exactly. And I think sometimes when we're feeling like we have a lack of clarity, but we just know we're like unsettled or something's just off or we're just not feeling the way we want, if we can't pinpoint what's going on, we often just kind of stay stuck in that feeling.
Yeah.
And so these three tips are just actionable things you could do over the holidays that are not about telling you to go to LinkedIn or go to a job board and start scrolling and overwhelming yourself, but things you can be doing that could help to just get out of that fuzzy, uh, stuck place and start the new year with a bit more clarity and feeling like you've already started a little momentum around this part of your life.
So you're telling me you're a career coach telling me not to go to LinkedIn?
I feel like I tell my clients not to go to LinkedIn all the time.
And why? Just say that again, because I feel like that's a really unique and original thing to say.
Yeah, so you and I are always chatting about job boards, not just LinkedIn, but we'll use it as an example as a tool, right? So it's a tool to research, to connect, to, start to identify roles or careers that you're interested in. But oftentimes, how people use these job boards is kind of like how they use social media, which is just kind of going on there with no clear purpose, no clear intention, and just start scrolling and seeing, and they get overwhelmed. They
Mhm.
get really frustrated, and it often they're like, screw it, never mind, I'm just going to stay stuck.
Yep, exactly. You know, that scrolling, which usually starts when people are tired and unhappy, leads quickly to a deeper being stuck in that place, that job place. And so, yeah, I just want to drive that home. These things that we're going to talk about just in a second are actionable, they are
Yep.
positive, but they do take time. You can't just sit on your couch and do this. We're going to ask you to do some deep thinking.
Yeah, so first idea that we had for you guys is this could be a hard time of year to like do networking, right? A lot of people are busy, there's holidays going on, there's end of the year. And so one thought I had was use the natural gatherings of this time of year, whether it's happy hour with friends, cocktail parties, holiday parties, or even just your family dinner table, to start getting curious about what other people do for a living. And maybe you already know what your immediate family or immediate circle of friends does for a living, but could you ask them maybe who has the most interesting job that you've ever heard of? Right. Or if you feel like you already know the careers of the people around you, get a little curious about what they actually do, right? Oftentimes, I think we know what our friends and family do, but ask them what they like about it. What do they get energized by? Or what are some of the things that they really like about their job? So these are just some questions you can start asking just to see, what do you learn? Do you come across anything that seems interesting or sparks your curiosity? Just bring a curious lens to other people's careers over the next couple weeks and see what you might find.
Yeah, I love that. I think that being curious is always an incredible state of being during any change, right? So sometimes we want to force it. We want to have an expectation that we're saying, I'm going to change a job by January 15th and, all these things, but being curious. And also, I think it's inspiring. Maybe you'll run into a couple people who don't like their jobs, but the ones that you do, where they are, willing to chat about what they like about their job, or someone they know who has an incredible job and experience, like that's a really healthy reminder that you can get to a better place.
Absolutely. And I think too, pay attention. If someone's talking about their job or someone they know who has an interesting job, notice if you get a little excited, or is your curiosity piqued, right? This could be a good kind of just experiment to see like, ooh, when they were talking about what they do in their job, or what their friend does, I got a little curious, or something in me like wanted to know more. Like, pay attention to that. That's something to explore further, or to ask more questions about. If you start zoning out and get bored, that's also good information for you.
I do want to throw a little warning out there. Sometimes we have that tendency to compare. And so sometimes if we're not in a good space mentally, or we're feeling a little overwhelmed, seeing someone who does really enjoy their job could be a space for comparison. And I want to just really kind of point out, have some awareness around that. People will appreciate their jobs. They'll share their things with you and all of that. That doesn't mean you need to go and mirror that. That doesn't mean you need to be them. But what is it that they like? What is it that inspires you about their job? And pulling those morsels out as pieces of a puzzle that you're building about yourself, and where you might also be finding those inspirations and such. So just be aware of that thief of joy, right? That comparison piece, and try to pull back if you're feeling any of those little impulses.
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder. And I think when we lean into curiosity, we tend to we can access a more kind of possibility thinking, right? And even if we're just being curious and asking questions and you could even say to people like, I'm feeling stuck in my career. I don't know what I want. So I'm just trying to ask a bunch of questions and see what else is out there, and learn a little bit more about what other people are doing. Like Micah said, that doesn't mean you have to go out and be them or create what they're doing, but just try to lean into curiosity. And I promise you that even just that mind shift of being stuck in being unhappy to being curious about what else is out there can do incredible things for mindset and, kind of mood overall.
I think this tip is really imperative for mindset. It just can really fuel inspiration and a healthier mindset about what the possibilities are, and that you can make a change.
Perfect. Okay. What's tip number 2?
So tip number 2 is to do the opposite of going to a party, but spend a little time reflecting. And of course, the holidays and with the new year coming up, this is a nice time to do a little bit of reflecting. But I would also not just use this time to tally what you've done and what goals you've hit, but rather go deep. And here are a couple questions you can be journaling about, and maybe not just one day on the one question, but so how am I feeling? And I love to ask clients to journal about that for a few days, so we can see, or they can see and understand how that mood might be staying the same, how that mood might be different on a Sunday evening versus a Friday morning. Some of this sounds very logical, but our feelings are happening to us very quickly. We're responding to the world often through these, reactions and our emotions, and we're not taking any kind of time to investigate what's really happening. Why on Sunday at about 4:00 do I get in the same argument with my husband? It's because I start thinking about going to work the next day, right? And all of a sudden I'm stressed, where at 3:00 I wasn't. That's how are you feeling? And what patterns are you seeing? So that's the first one. The second one is, what am I really good at? Again, life happens fast, right? We're doing a lot of things. We're on screens. We're having multiple attention pulls, texting, slacking, all that stuff. So spending time to find a quiet place to journal and reflect on what just pops up for you when you ask yourself, what am I good at? And spend time drawing it out. The third
Can I
one,
add something to that
of
one real quick?
course.
I think a lot of people can struggle with this question, especially when it's not something you're thinking about on the regular.
Yeah.
We're not really, I think a lot of people get uncomfortable thinking about themselves in a positive light or what they're good at. They're much more conditioned or comfortable thinking about what they need to improve or what they're bad at. So if you're getting stuck with that question, I often think about what are compliments you've received in your
Ooh.
life? What are maybe some feedback you've gotten from bosses or colleagues that over the years there's been like a pattern around? You always kind of get something that feels a little similar. So those could be like, maybe if you're having trouble seeing it or accessing it on your own, like what have other people mirrored back to you could be helpful to kind of start journaling.
Yeah, I love that. And also, if the only ones you can kind of pull upon are happening outside of work, that's some big information, right? If you're not feeling like there are things that you're good at inside of work. So those are the types of observations that we'd love for you to draw from.
Yep.
And then the third question is, and this word gets kicked around a lot, but what brings me joy?
Mm.
And again, joy is this energy and this feeling of being alive. And if we've been feeling bummed about our job, or we've been feeling bummed on a Sunday night, we need to like re-engage ourselves with the things that bring us joy, so that we're actually trying to like create a new pool of energy
Mm.
to draw from while you're going to figure this out, which is kind of the next step, right? So spending time journaling, it's not a space like Shannon, you said a moment ago, that we as adults get to spend a lot of time reflecting on. So be patient with yourself, do a
Mm.
little brainstorming, think about where you last felt good. Give yourself a little time to dive into joy and what it looks like in your life. But that's what the journaling is so good for.
Yep.
It's a release. And sometimes it takes a moment to get there. So stick with it.
Yeah, and I think too, we now have so much science that we can look at as to like what happens in our brain when we sit down and put pen to paper. And oftentimes people are like, why journal? What's the point of that? But there really is, like Micah said, not only an opportunity to kind of like release maybe some heaviness or some sadness or some things you've been holding on to, but it is also just a way to process. And if you've been feeling stuck, or you've been kind of stuck in kind of a general malaise, and you're just not sure what's going on or where it's coming from, there's such power in creating dedicated space to just thinking and reflecting and seeing what comes up. And like Micah said, sometimes if this is a muscle you haven't been building, it might be rusty at first. I remember when I was in grad school, we got the instruction that if you're journaling and thoughts aren't coming, to just write like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. And just like keep writing it over and over. Like, don't take your pen off the paper, and set a timer for a certain amount of time. And almost every single time, eventually a thought will pop up or something will come to mind, and you'll kind of like unstuck or kind of get past a block that might initially be there.
Yeah, that's an amazing technique. Again, it's also about making the time in the space. So journaling is something that you actually have to probably like find a quiet place in your house, or do it in the morning, and whatever works for you. If it is in the morning or the evening, then you have to protect that time a little bit too. So that's a part of the journaling, asking the questions, processing, and ultimately making the space so that you know what's going on, and you
Yep.
can think about how to get past this bummed feeling.
Yep. Exactly. Okay, last tip that we have for you over the next couple weeks to start 2024 with a little bit more clarity is to, at the end of your workday, so not when you're home, but like literally before you shut off your computer, have a document where you are keeping track for the next 2 weeks, 3 things that energized you in your workday, and then 3 things that depleted you. And if you can't come up with 3, try for 1 or 2, right? Just every day kind of calendar, have a Word doc, and, spend 5 minutes doing this. And the purpose of this is to have a actual like recording of what your work days actually look and feel like, because oftentimes when we're unhappy or we're stuck and we're not sure what's going on, we just make general sweeping assumptions about like, I just hate my job, or I hate my boss, or, like whatever. And when we are kind of operating in those general kind of sweeps, it makes it hard to really have a clear handle of like, what can I do? What should I do? And so really drilling down to like the pieces of your day, or the particular situations, or the particular people that are zapping your energy. And also paying attention to, are there any moments where you do feel good, or you are feeling energized? Because that's helpful information too.
Yeah, I think that's where people get a lot of stuck, or get stuck a lot, excuse me, is that, they know that they're not feeling well, and then they just think, I got to go somewhere else.
Yep.
And not taking this inventory really doesn't allow you to see what's happening in a way that's going to help you make a good decision about where you go next.
Yep.
And so I love asking people to really focus on tasks too, because when the tasks at work like are completed in a good environment, we get a burst of energy. That's that joy, that's that motivation. And if you're going through days and days without completing a task, and that could be writing an email, that could be, working on a larger project, but like whatever your role in that, when you complete that, if nothing happens, that's really worth noting. And you have to slow down and you have to track it to make sure that you're gathering that information as it happens.
And I don't know about you, but every time I have some sort of practice where I am taking inventory, I am surprised by the reality of my days.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, because oftentimes, like, I'm thinking about doing like a gratitude journal, right? Like when I'm in the practice of doing that consistently, and I sit down and really focus on like what was good today, or what felt good, or what was beautiful, or brought me a moment of joy, oftentimes I can list so many more things than I could 5 minutes before I sat down. And that allows me to kind of reframe into like, oh, wow, actually a lot of good was flowing in my day today. You might find the opposite, right? You may find that, there was a lot of frustration and a lack of that, but oftentimes we can't trust our like general assumptions. So the inventory and the writing it down, and then going back after 2 weeks and looking at the patterns, or looking at, wow, I had 3 days in a row, like Micah said, where I just felt stuck and frustrated or couldn't complete things. Right. Or vice versa. Like, wow, actually, there are a lot of good moments in my day. And maybe, that might help to bring some awareness to like what aspect of your job isn't working or isn't feeling right. So 2 weeks inventory, it only will take a few minutes at the end of your day. Guaranteed it'll bring some clarity as to what's going on, and, where some of those feelings might be coming from.
Yeah. And with that clarity and understanding those emotions and where those feelings are coming from, you can start to think about really making a change. And that change maybe can be just a shift in the same career path. It could also be a big pivot, but you can't get any clarity without really slowing down and doing these types of self-reflections. And again, I'll say at the end of the year is a lovely time to do this. So carve it out. Commit to helping yourself have a better 2024 and to gaining clarity.
Yep. Beautifully said. Yeah. And I think starting the year knowing that you already have kind of shifted energy, or started the process, or began to kind of dig in and explore, I think will be a much more energizing place to start the year versus just letting that kind of unhappiness and stuck feeling roll right into the new year. So good luck. Those are your 3 tips. Let us know how it goes, and we'll see you on the other side in 2024.
Yep. Have a good holiday, everyone.
Take care.